Famcast Media, bitch.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, persons of all ages, welcome to the most exclusive group in the wrestling community. Now first, hailing from Barrio Ingenio in Toa Baja, Puerto Rico, Sazón Luis Rodríguez and his tag team partner from Toronto, Canada, Skip.
And we're good to go, man. So welcome, everyone. This is Must Love Wrestling, and today's episode is a very special one. We have talked about this man a lot. We have talked about this podcast a lot, and we have decided to once again try to do this for you now that we have a platform and a podcast host that we trust. So today's spotlight is on the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Micheals.
I'm not gonna dance, but
I mean, I think you should. Are you wearing chaps right now?
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
Oh, nice. Hopefully they're assless. Ooh.
It's the only kind I wear, buddy.
There you go. That's the way to do it. That's what happens when you got those thousand like thread sheets, really nice and cool ones. I like it. This is a weird way to start the podcast.
It's a weird,
but
it is a little strange, yeah.
Well, before we jump into Shawn Micheals and his backstory and stuff like that, I thought each of us can tell everybody what Shawn Micheals means specifically to us. So I'll start with you since he's your first favorite.
Yeah, dude. I really became a Shawn Micheals fan. You know, I was still a kid, so I guess when he turned babyface, or right around the time really that he won the Rumble, I just thought it was cool that a smaller guy was getting that kind of push. I guess he's not as small as we thought he was, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
he was small for the time, and I don't know. Right around that time, my parents got divorced, and wrestling was like my escape from all that. And he was my guy, so like he became like my hero. Like I acted like Shawn Micheals. I would go to school and dance and try to do the pose and try to do the super kick, but I can't lift my leg that high. And it didn't do me any favors, but yeah, I even dyed my hair blonde at one point, which is a sight to behold.
No, I think that's cool, man.
Not the best look, but
no, it's all right. I think that's cool, man, that he resonates with you and you found something that like he attached to you through like, that difficult time of your life. I guess for me, I'll never forget him wrestling like Lex Luger and wrestling Mr. Perfect like at a young age before he was like officially the Heartbreak Kid. Like he had just started coming out with Sensational Sherry, and I remember he didn't even have hearts on his tights yet. I had his little you remember those little wrestling action figures that were the ones were like they were like 4 inches tall and they only had specific ones and they all did one specific movement.
Yeah.
Like I had that one and he had like black and silver tights and stuff, and I just remember for me it was shocking when he won the Rumble in '95, but I think at that point I was kind of like, oh, like are we gonna get this like Shawn Micheals versus Brett thing? Is Brett gonna still be champ? Is I didn't know what was gonna happen, but obviously we got a wasted WrestleMania match with Kevin Nash, but whatever, we're not gonna talk about Kevin Nash on this podcast, but yeah, Shawn Micheals wasn't always one of my favorites that early, being that I've said plenty of times on here I'm a big Bret Hart guy, but his second run when he came back, I had a girlfriend in high school, Letitia Russo, and we I didn't realize she was a wrestling fan. She never told me. It was one of those things. I think she was just trying to be cool, but she didn't realize like I was a dork. So like when I found out that she was a wrestling fan, it made us closer together. And I remember like we both, like nowadays people do that and they think it's cutesy, but here we are back in 2002, both wearing "Don't Hunt What You Can't Kill" t-shirts, like jumping the like train to get to New York City. And Shawn Michaels just meant a lot. That was my senior year. That was like one of the best moments of my life. Like just being with that girl. I thought that was going to be the girl I was going to be with the rest of my life. But so Shawn really meant something. I remember we were talking about having kids in the future and naming him Shawn, just that like, that's how much he meant to us. So,
oh yeah, I don't think I've ever been quite that. It's a nice name.
Yeah.
Many greats have had it. Shawn Michaels, Shawn Hunter.
Yeah. I mean, I actually had a friend named Shawn in high school. He was a dick. I don't even think I get along with him anymore, but I loved his dad, Mr. Bill. Mr. Bill was hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, I'm going to jump right into it, Tyler. What do you think?
Well, you mentioned Lex Luger. A quick story. I think when I really became Shawn became my favorite was I went to a house show with my dad. It was Labor Day weekend of '95, so this would be right. It may have been Lex's last show with the company.
Oh, okay.
And Diesel had gotten hurt at SummerSlam. The main event was supposed to be Diesel versus Yoko for the title, but the substitute main was Lex and Shawn teaming up to face Owen and Yoko for the tag titles.
Oh.
And it was such a banger that, man, I think that's when Shawn maybe became my favorite.
That's cool. That's a really cool thing. I don't think that there's a guy that I've ever seen like live where it's been like, oh, I'm gonna root for this guy just because he's that guy. But
it's the same thing.
I like that
with Willow and AR Fox because I saw them at the ROH taping. And
yeah,
impressed me, and now they're getting a little shine.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. But yeah, man, I guess what I would say, honestly, I think it's one of those things where Shawn he's arguably the greatest wrestler of all time. What he's done in the ring, it's sort of like you mentioned this when you were talking about like the Brian Okada match, like what Shawn Michaels has done is art. Like you watch his matches, even today, they're studied. Like, I feel like people go back and watch these matches and they're just like, these are the best things ever. And what I realized about Shawn is we have all these conversations about wrestlers left and right and how we talk about like their best matches, their bad matches. I don't see anybody talking about Shawn ever having bad matches. He's just that quality of a performer, right?
Right. Yeah, I'm lost to think of a match that was bad.
Yeah, I came up with something this morning. I couldn't get it out of my head, and I just want to say it before it's too late. I believe Brett and Shawn is the greatest rivalry in the history of professional wrestling. And I believe that the reason that I feel this way, and I think it stands atop the mountain, that I feel like I can scream this, I dare you to find me a Brett versus Shawn bad match. For the people that talk about the top rope match, the tag match, FTR and the Young Bucks couldn't get that type of match out of that. They couldn't get that good a match out of that right now today. They just couldn't do it.
Okay. I actually completely forgotten about that match because as far as that goes, it doesn't exist, I guess.
Those of us that are Rocker fans know that they were tag team champions. So
yeah. But
Shawn's been taking titles off of Brett since before he was a single star.
But if you're gonna make me go there. If you want to point to a bad...
But that's a personal opinion, and a lot of people think that that's one of the greatest matches ever. A lot of wrestlers put it on their top 5 list. That's a personal Tyler Taylor opinion. But universally, people love the Iron Man match.
But why? Because it's long?
No, because it's a solid wrestling match. Because we got to see them just go. That match is
45
better
minutes
than,
of wrestle.
No, it's not. I went back and watched this match. You say that a lot. They actually do a lot of good spots. They do extend the life, but they're doing things that Bad Bunny gets praised for today. Like they're letting the crowd lead them into the next spot.
Because he's a rock star, not one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time.
I don't know. I know it's a match that people like. I don't like the finish of it. I still think the finish is as bad as 97 Starrcade, in my opinion.
I don't know about that.
It's the fact that they brought out the commissioner and needed to restart the match. Like I just let him win the title as time expires. Like I don't understand what was the purpose of the sudden death overtime. Like I just don't. That's the part that I don't like.
I've often said you can make that match better just by giving each of them one fall in regulation.
Yeah, but I think it matters so much more that Shawn just like. It's like a hockey ending.
Yeah, give them each one fall, and they go to sudden death overtime, and then same finish.
I suppose.
I just think it's a polarizing match. I don't like you either love it or you hate it, and I hate it. So.
Well, I think a lot of people nowadays, and I think this is through fault of CM Punk, they just want to shit on the past. Like CM Punk's a main reason why guys like go back and watch wrestling, and they're just like, yeah, he was right. This is slow. This sucks. These guys don't do awesome. I'm gonna tell you right now, that Iron Man match and anything CM Punk's done in his entire career are not even close. Like that match. For also, that's also CM Punk's favorite match ever. Just to throw that out there, he's talked about that a lot.
Okay, well,
he just like me felt like Brett should have won, but
well, Brett thinks Brett should have won too. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. I feel like
he writes in his book, in this ending, the better man would lose it.
Yeah. That's good. He's got to mark out some way there. But yeah. But all right, man. So born Michael Shawn Hickenbottom in Chandler, Arizona on July 22nd, 1965. Shawn Micheals was a military brat. And as a child, he disliked the name Michael and convinced his friends and family to address him by his middle name. Ever since, he's been referred to as Shawn. I love that. I love that little snippet there because it's great to know that like he was able to like get people to do something for him, like call him Shawn, and then it turned out to be like he wound up using his first name as his last name. I think that's great.
I think even his parents call him Shawn.
Yeah. I mean, of course, they're going to call their baby boy whatever he wants to be called. But yeah, Hickenbottom began to train under Mexican professional wrestler Jose Lothario. That's where he kind of came up with his name, Shawn Micheals, and he made his debut with the NWA Mid-South Wrestling Territory on October 16th, 1984. This dude was making his debut 2 months after I was born. That's awesome. That is so cool. Yeah, right.
I wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
I guess.
Oh, that's right. You are. That's right. I thought that's weird. That is absolutely weird. Oh, I just got to get you to tell the world when you were born, though. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, who cares?
So one thing that's been talked about Shawn Micheals in his debut was how he impressed so many veterans just from his first match. He teamed with Jim Hornet in a losing effort against Hercules Hernandez and the most overrated wrestler in the history of professional wrestling, Dr. Death, Steve Williams. You don't believe me? Go back and ask Vince Russo. So
that's the guy whose opinion I really care about.
I cared about it there. He's right. Cornette's wrong. And the Brawl for All was amazing. It was amazing. I wish we had it today. But yeah, Shawn Michaels is one of these guys that he was able to kind of continue to be like super popular and move up the card just based on like his performance in the ring. Did you know that from like it took him 2 years to get to the World Wrestling Federation? From his debut match, it took him 2 years to get to the WWF. That is insane, Tyler.
Yeah, that's unheard of unless you're in Performance Center, baby.
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of one of those things where I don't think we'll ever see anything like that. Like we might see them take a guy off the street like Stevenson, Breaker, but they're not going to like, oh, this guy wrestled on the indies over here. Oh yeah, let's bring him in here now. Like that's never going to happen. That would happen in AEW, but you know that again, that's just going from indies to indies because that's an indie promotion.
I think though that the territories were more respected than the so-called indies today, because it's different. People look at the indies as like a spot fest.
Nowadays, over the past 10 years, they're spot fest.
Whereas the territories are looked at more as like where you'd go to learn your craft.
Yeah. I mean, you look at it like 10 years ago, the wrestlers that came out of the indies, they were super polished and ready to go. Nowadays, guys come out of the indies and it's like, this is like watching Daniel Puder. But, you know.
Right, but if you're talking about guys like Brian and stuff and like that, like how much time did they spend there? So they're polished.
Yeah, I mean, Brian started in 2000 and he had been signed to WWE like in like 2006 or something. Like he was signed pretty fast, but yeah, I mean in 1987 the Rockers were put together, and did you know that it was actually pitched to Marty Jannetty to get them together? They brought him in. They told him he was going to be working with a guy named Shawn Michaels. He didn't realize Shawn was in the locker room. He just saw this kid. And he's like, they were like, that's him right there. Marty was like, wow, he's young. And immediately Marty was like, if they're pushing this guy to me this fast and making me tag with him, like they obviously see something special in him. So there's always been this aura around Shawn Michaels to just be like that he was super special.
Right, and this was before they got to WWE. This was I want to say maybe Continental.
Yeah, I mean, yes. And they became so popular based on – everybody thinks it's because of their look. Everybody thinks it's because of that awesome theme song. But no, it was based on the fact that they were one of the originators to do, like, tag moves. They wanted to, like, double suplex you, double drop kick you, double super kick. They were all about tagging. It was
they got in trouble for doing the double drop kick because that's Rock and Roll Express's finish.
Well – they're better than the Rock and Roll Express. I mean, Marty Jannetty on one leg is better than the Rock and Roll Express. So I feel like that was such a big deal back in the day. Like you had to be so like respectful. Like we even hear about it with Austin Theory and Randy Orton. Like some people are still old school where Austin had to reach out to him because his finisher is like or it used to be the TKO and it was a version of the RKO, and he kind of wanted to do that. But, things like that were respected, and that could get you massive heat back in the day if you didn't, like, actually follow, like, the chain of command, I guess you would say. But, I mean, the Rockers made their debut at a live event July 7th, 1988, which means that we just hit the anniversary of the Rockers. Michaels and Jannetty were named as simply the Rockers. The team proved popular with children and women, which kind of means that they kind of started the whole John Cena thing, if you think about it. They were on television shows. What?
They were white meat baby faces.
Yeah. But I mean, like children too. Like that's a big deal. I can't imagine Shawn being a fan of children, or children being a fan of Shawn at any point in his career. Even Holy Shawn still did like some of the gyration movements. during this time, the Rockers headlined their first pay-per-view in WWF as involved in a 4-on-4 Survivor Series main event on November 23rd, 1989. And now we're going to get to the point that we talk about. On October 30th, 1990, even though it's been forgotten, you can still watch the match. The Rockers unofficially won the WWF Tag Team Championship from the Hart Foundation. And because the top rope broke during this match, and because it was recorded, and it wasn't a live show for television, they just went back and they planned on redoing the match later on, and they just decided not to. And the Hart Foundation, they lost the tag titles, but they kept their titles. But I said it before, and I'll say it again. Shawn's been taking titles off Brett his entire career.
Just Brett gets them first, and then he comes along next, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, so the plan was that they were gonna transition the Anvil to as an announcer.
Oh.
And Brett was gonna go on a singles run. And right around that time, Anvil got in trouble, and Vince had to pay a bunch of legal fees for him. So he wasn't getting his money's worth out of him as an announcer, so that's why they decided to keep it the way it was instead of redoing the match.
Yeah. I mean, Hart Foundation's possibly on the Mount Rushmore of tag teams, and so it's not like he wasn't getting his money out of them. People love the Hart Foundation.
Right, so that he needed him as an active performer to recoup what he was owed, so.
Yeah. I mean, Shawn Michaels was able to get really good matches out of people. And even as a tag team wrestler, whenever he wrestled a singles match, it was really special. Even at this point, he had a singles match with Ric Flair. And this match, if you go back and watch it, it is better than their WrestleMania match. And I love the finish of it, how, he doesn't actually lose. It's kind of like a schmoz finish. He gets knocked out. You know what match I'm talking about, right?
Yes, yeah, we talked about it on the original. I watched it then, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at this match, when you look at what, Flair did, I'm hard-pressed to say that Flair wasn't just paying it forward throughout the entire 80s. That whole decade, I felt like he was just finding superstars left and right and just putting them over in one way, shape, or form. That's kind of been his thing his entire career. Ever since Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, he's just pushed it forward.
Yeah, he definitely, he looked for guys to work with that he could have those type of matches with, with Steamboat and with Sting, and
yeah.
We had this match with Shawn, and the matches he had with Brett in WWF as well.
Savage,
but Savage was a legend by that point as well.
Agreed.
I'm looking for younger, up-and-coming talent that he kind of gave the rub to.
Yeah.
One of my favorite Rocker matches, we discussed it, I think, on text last week, was they open up the 91 Royal Rumble against the Orient Express in about a 23-minute match that could easily main event Raw or open a pay-per-view today.
I love that you say that, and then you talk about the time limit of the match or the timing of the match, and it makes me think about the quote that you said on our podcast a while back when we were talking about SmackDown going to 3 hours. And I believe your exact words were, "This is where we live in today. Everybody just wants more and more and more." And I'm thinking back in the day, that was Royal Rumble, you said, right? There was 3 matches on the whole card. It was 3 matches and the Rumble.
Yeah. I don't know what else on there other than that's the one that Slaughter beat Warrior for the title.
Yeah, but that's kind of what I'm thinking about. Why wouldn't WWE do that now? Sometimes less is more. Give us this is what we're gonna get. Especially the Royal Rumble that gets it's like a 4-hour show. The Royal Rumble's it's the second longest pay-per-view of the year, and we get 2-hour-long matches with the women and men's Royal Rumble. Like, why don't we just get a women's world title match, a men's world title match, Royal Rumble, end of pay-per-view? I don't understand why it doesn't work out that way, but
I think that's more or less what it was this year, wasn't it? They had that stupid Mountain Dew match or whatever, but other than that, they had Sammy and Roman and KO, Alexa Bliss and Bianca.
yeah.
And the two Rumble matches is all I remember, but I don't recall.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I just think it's crazy that a tag match got that much time.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, you could tell that there was like an aura about him, because if we're gonna move on to there, the Rockers kind of maintained their partnership for like the next, I would say, couple of months, but because that was Royal Rumble, so that was actually January, right? That would be
91.
January 91. Okay, so 11 months later, they filmed the infamous barbershop segment. Now, fun fact about this segment: it was filmed in December, but it didn't air until January. I wonder if Vince McMahon, and I wonder if they thought that maybe Shawn wasn't ready, and then it took them like a whole month to decide, let's just do it. Like, why do you think they filmed it so far out and then released it? Like, because it was filmed on December 2nd, and then it aired January 11th.
Well, a lot of times back then they would tape several weeks of TV at the same time, though, too. And in addition to that, you got to figure the holidays were in there too. So I just think it was a timing thing, probably.
Yeah.
But I don't think there was any questions, because I know Shawn had gone to him before that and asked if he thought he could do singles, because he was influenced by Roddy Piper to do it. They had a conversation, and Roddy told him he thought he was money as a single star. Yeah. And he needed to get away from Marty.
Yeah, I mean, Marty did come back after that, but he didn't. He just kind of had like moderate success, one IC title win, but that was pretty much it. And Shawn, obviously, from all the way up until he leaves in '98, he's just like, he went from the boy toy to like the Heartbreak Kid, and he was like one of the biggest heels in the business until 1996. He spent the first 5.5 years. Like from when this happened, he spent the first 5.5 years as like one of the biggest villains in professional wrestling. Because back in the day, if you did something like this, like the barbershop thing, like that's it, you were hated. And Shawn, the moment he did that to Marty Jannetty, became one of the most hated men on the planet.
Yeah, I mean, so for his career, essentially, he's a made man, because he's got all this heat from this.
Mm-hmm.
And right off the bat, like within a year, he's Intercontinental Champion, beat the Bulldog on Saturday night's main event.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he's working with, Kurt Hennig, and he worked with Brett. He worked with, he's in top spots, and he's the one of the top heels.
Yeah. Well, I feel like he definitely had some great feuds. Did you know, fun fact, did you know who named Shawn Michaels the Heartbreak Kid? Do you know who gave him that moniker?
Isn't it Elvis related?
I don't know what it's related to, but I know who gave him the moniker then.
Who was it?
Mr. Perfect. He called him the Heartbreak Kid, like referring to that he was breaking hearts all over the world.
Okay. I think it had something to do with an Elvis movie, because I believe they're both big Elvis fans.
Oh, okay.
It's been a long time since I read this, so I'm not 1,000% sure, but I believe that had something to do with it, because I know that right around this time, they tried to break into Graceland.
Oh. Well, so the breakup happens January 11, 1992, and just 4 months later, Shawn Michaels gets his debut singles match as his new moniker, the Heartbreak Kid, and it's against Tito Santana.
This is at Mania.
Yeah. And then, I mean, that's kind of what starts it. That's kind of what starts is like Mr. WrestleMania thing. Like it's very hard for you to find a bad Shawn Michaels match at WrestleMania. I mean, he got like an exceptional match out of Vince McMahon. So, and that match is better than Vince versus Shane, and like any Vince versus Austin match. But we're not going to jump ahead. We're going to stay in. We're going to do chronological here. So for the next like 3 years, Shawn is like on again, off again, like Intercontinental Champion. But I would like to move on to what Shawn Michaels has been able to be a big part of, because before it was actually filmed at WrestleMania 10, Shawn Michaels was in a ladder match against Bret the Hitman Hart. And then we move on to WrestleMania like 10, where they decide we're going to do this like live in front of an audience, like on our biggest show of the year. And I mean, the match holds up, Tyler. It's possibly like top 2 or 3 ladder man match we've ever seen. If we're taking tag teams away and we're just doing straight singles ladder matches, I mean, it's possibly 2 or 3 the best we've ever seen.
Yeah, it's 1-on-1 straight singles ladder matches, probably close. I would say maybe in the top 5. Certainly incredibly innovative for its time. Mm-hmm. And Brett likes to say that Shawn stole his finish, but I watched this match the other day, and the finish is not him crotching himself on the rope. It's him getting his ankle caught in the ropes.
Yeah.
So they did put a little tweak on that, and I just think they did a great job of doing stuff that nobody had done before.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, those two guys were super over, and I got to be honest with you, Razor Ramon is one of those guys where I'm still, God rest his soul, I'm still annoyed that he was never WWF champion. I felt like he was as over as anybody else. Like what we're seeing in LA Knight today, we saw in Razor Ramon back then. Like he was that over, especially when he had this feud with Shawn, because he was the babyface. And think about the time in wrestling, the smaller guy, which was Shawn Michaels, he was the heel. That to me is one of the craziest things. Fun fact about their 2 ladder matches, I don't know if you know this, but the bad luck moniker, that like the bad luck thing that people talk about, both of the wrestlers that win their ladder matches walk under the ladder before they win. Like during Razor's entrance at WrestleMania 10, he walks under the ladder. During the SummerSlam entrance, Shawn walks under the ladder, and then they win. They both win those matches. So
that's pretty funny.
Yeah, I just kind of like caught that. I don't even think that's like a thing on Google. I'm sure it is. Tons of smart people out there. But I actually I was like, that's weird. Like, that's a weird thing. But do you have any like special? I know you love Shawn Michaels' Intercontinental title run. Do you have any special like IC title matches that stick out to you for Shawn?
Certainly the match that he wins the title from Jeff Jarrett.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, his matches with Jarrett were awesome.
Beyond that, there is I like the second ladder match. I think it's amazing, especially considering they were told day of that they weren't allowed to use the ladder as a weapon. Mm. So they had to completely rework the match and work around it.
Yeah.
I think they did just an absolutely amazing job with that. IC title. Those are 2 that really stand out for me from the 95 run, which wasn't that long, I guess.
Yeah.
Because of the Syracuse thing. from the first run. Let's see, obviously the ladder match.
Yeah.
He wasn't champion for that. Razor was. Shawn was the rightful champion, quote unquote.
Well, he was suspended.
Right.
I mean, I still don't understand how he was suspended. It's 2023. He still is like the guy in the prison yard. Like, I'm innocent. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, he still is. He still maintains that he did not do steroids.
The thing is, like, there have been people that have, like, scientifically proven that you can't drug someone else with steroids. Like, there's no way to do that. Like, you need the injection. You can't digest it through your mouth. So how else would he test positive?
Maybe he just had elevated testosterone levels. Who knows? I mean, he could have been taking a supplement of some kind that triggered a positive. Who knows?
I mean, his body doesn't change. His body doesn't change. Like, he goes from like thick as the Rockers to like the beginning part of Shawn, and I know he says like, "I was fat back then." Like, he even says that.
He was a little chubby.
Yeah, but his body doesn't actually change until 96, where he like all of a sudden starts like looking like, "Oh, okay, this is Shawn Michaels. Like, this is the look that I remember." And then by the time he wrestled Austin, I remember like he was the biggest he'd ever been, like the most jacked he's ever been. I think he had to protect his body though, like, you know, just breaking down.
Yeah, so. Muscularly, he was a little bit more muscular, but he also leaned out a lot, I think.
Oh yeah, no question. I feel like all wrestlers do, like Edge and guys like that. Like whenever they come back, Christian even now, even though he's like trolling everybody wearing a turtleneck and he's got like 9 abs under there. It's hilarious. But yeah, I mean, his Intercontinental Championship reign wasn't super like stick out to me. I feel like Shawn, like I've mentioned this before to you. We've talked about it. I say this and I'll say this forever. Shawn Michaels is the reason to me that he is like so special is because Shawn is bigger than championships of any kind. I don't ever like look at Shawn as a guy who needs a championship to legitimize his career. Like he could have been the one guy, like the best comparison outside of wrestling that I can give him is Dan Marino. Like Marino doesn't need a Super Bowl to be considered one of the greatest ever. He was just that good. That's how I look at Shawn Michaels. Like he didn't need these championships, and I think he knew that on his second run. So,
yeah, he did, and he also just didn't want to do the schedule.
Yeah, he didn't want to be the face. He didn't want to go out there and do all that stuff. Yeah, I know there's a lot of stuff that like he's talked about it like himself, but yeah, I mean, to me, his Intercontinental Championship matches with Razor Ramon, both of them were really good. I liked his Jarrett matches. I feel like those are really good. But I always liked when he stepped away from the Intercontinental Championship and he had like his 92 match with Bret Hart, I felt like was so good. You know what I mean? Like the WWF Championship match.
I do. I agree with you. Bret doesn't, but I think that's just so he could take a shot at Shawn in his book. But.
Well, I suppose that's I'm not going to sit here and argue with.
He slowed down He said he slowed down the pace, and it wasn't what it could have been because Shawn couldn't work that pace.
Well, that is definitely just taking a shot at Shawn, because
right.
Shawn, yeah,
right.
Shawn is like the Steph Curry of that time. He could have gone like 3 hours in one night, like, and he wouldn't even be gassed. I just don't believe
like
it.
They went 26 minutes.
Come on, Brett.
Yeah.
I mean, I love you, man, but sometimes
that was pre-reconciliation.
Yeah. Let's move on to the 1995 Royal Rumble, which shocked wrestling fans everywhere.
It did.
So I guess Shawn. So behind the scenes, Shawn was told he was going over. He was going to win the Royal Rumble. Vince kind of wanted to see if it would work and he could move into being a main eventer. And it was a lot of people don't know this, but it was actually Shawn's idea to come in number 1. He just, and it was based off a question. He just asked, has anybody ever won this thing coming in first? Right. And he did. And for the people out there that say Davey Boy Smith can't work, you don't know your ass from your elbow. Brett was just mean in that age frame. Davey Boy has proved to be one of the best wrestlers ever, especially from that side of the country. And watching these two make it the whole way through the Royal Rumble, like that Royal Rumble match back then with like not as many high spots or movements or Kofi Kingston's or anything like that in the Royal Rumble, it's a great match. Like, I love it. I love watching that match.
Do you know why that match is the only one that had 1 minute intervals?
No.
They didn't feel they had the talent to fill out a long match, so they shorten it. That's why they had guys like Dick Murdoch and different people from other promotions in it as well, because the roster was fairly thin at that time.
That's why I love the Royal Rumble, because it gives us like, then I wonder if that's the start of it, because now every year we get like wrestlers from other promotions and like indie wrestlers or retired veterans and things like that. Like, I wonder if it started in '95. That's a great.
It would have been probably the first time that a lot of that happened. There's different lists of random Rumble entrants.
Okay.
On, the various YouTube things.
Yeah. I mean, at this point in Shawn's career, the number 1 television show in the world was Baywatch. And I think that, if I remember correctly, Pamela Anderson was to walk out with the winner of the Royal Rumble for WrestleMania. Yeah. And this is one of those moments where Shawn Michaels did not steal the show at WrestleMania, but, through no fault of his own, sometimes you just don't have a good dance partner. And, he was wrestling I'm not going to disparage Kevin Nash right now. I'm not going to do that. What I will say is he was pretty raw in being able to work this. And you can tell that how raw he was, because typically, and me and you talk about this all the time off air, like when wrestlers are real life friends, they ride together and things like that, they typically produce really good matches together. And we just didn't get this out of the two of them. And it was the first time where I'd actually looked at the WWF title as second fiddle, because that main event was all I really wanted to watch that WrestleMania. Well,
one thing about it is, Vince really wanted Nash to look strong. Mm. So I don't know if you remember the super kick, and then he kicks out at 1. Like violently kicks out at 1.
Yeah.
And the fans boo. Mm-hmm. And then they do like a back suplex, like a German, like with a bridge. And they get him back with the 1-2 barely up.
Yeah.
But that's how Shawn became a babyface, because Vince saw. This is a great story. So Bruce Pritchard tells the story that he wanted to turn Shawn face and put the title on him. Him and Pat Patterson had been pitching it for about a year. Mm-hmm. And Vince was like, that little bastard is always going to be a heel and he will never be the champion. And to the day after Mania, they get in the car. Vince has rewatched the show. They get in the car to go to TV. And Vince is like, why didn't you tell me? We have ourselves a baby face. We have to rewrite everything.
Yeah, I mean, far be it for me to knock Triple H in this moment, but that's why I believe Vince McMahon will always stand the test of time as like a, I'm not going to say genius because I know you don't like that word, but I would say an innovator, because he'll listen to a crowd reaction like he did at WrestleMania 11, and then he'll decide that the next day, even if he like lays blame on someone else, he'll decide he'll see a new idea, And we're watching with Triple H that he will stand his ground. He's not going to do that. We're watching it with LA Knight now. We're watching it with Cody Rhodes now. And I love the fact that Vince McMahon will let the crowd tell him like, yeah, we have a guy. We have a guy. We need to rally behind him now before it's too late.
I guess I see the LA Knight thing as it's similar to what they did with Austin. Like we've discussed that, like he wasn't on SummerSlam right after he won and he actually was. They put him in won the free for all against Yoko. They added that match to get him on there. Just like they're adding this Battle Royal now, so LA Knight has something to do at the pay per view, and he probably win with it.
No, so I think what they've told us here is that he'll make it to the final two and get eliminated. Because that's what seems to happen to LA Knight. He makes it to the end and then he just loses.
Okay, maybe.
So, but getting back to Shawn, I feel like that run in '96, like his leading up to his match with Bret the Hitman Hart was possibly like one of the greatest runs we've ever seen. I mean, the next 2 years of his career, which are pretty much the end of tights Shawn Michaels, as it has been coined. There's tights and then there's pants Shawn Michaels. And I gotta say, I mean, he had some exceptional matches. One of which being the Owen Hart match at In Your House, where he puts the WWF Championship match on the line against Owen. They had been playing this whole Shawn has a head injury and he gets knocked out during his match with Owen Hart, and him and Owen had such great chemistry. And I wish Owen would have actually wanted to be WWF champion, but a lot of Owen not getting his push was him not wanting to be the face of the company. He wanted to be a family man. I think a lot of people think Vince held him down, but Owen made these decisions. He didn't want them. He didn't want the responsibility. But yeah, I mean, Shawn in '96 is one of the best versions of Shawn Michaels we've ever gotten.
Yeah, I laughed when I watched this match because I just think there's no way, if it were today, that it wouldn't somehow end up being a triple threat match at Mania.
Agreed. 100%.
They would find some way.
Yup.
But yes, this is a great match. They tell a great story. The only thing that I would have changed is the when he gets hit with the Enziguri, he goes to the outside, like he falls out of the ring. I would have had him fall in the ring and had like the closest false finish in the history of false finishes, and then had him, win after that. But it's still an amazing match. You've said a lot that you think he and Owen had better chemistry than him and Bret.
Yeah.
Could be because they didn't hate each other.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going on, like, I think this was the beginning of the end for Shawn Michaels, though, '96. Like, I think we kind of got his tiredness of the business. He had only been in the business at this point for 11 years, but I think he was growing tired because if I remember correctly, before he wins the Royal Rumble in '96, they actually teased his retirement live on television.
They did it because, for dramatic purposes, I think, because of the Owen Hart kick and all that.
Yeah. I don't
think he was considering retiring by any means.
Yeah.
I think when he got tired of the business was he's the champion and he's having all these amazing matches and it's not helping in the ratings or anything, and he's getting the blame, when in reality it's just the fact that the other side has gotten the hottest angle that's ever been in professional wrestling at that time.
Yeah.
And anyone could have been champion doing anything and it wouldn't have mattered.
So over the next year, we obviously get some spectacular matches. Royal Rumble 96, which is one of the most underrated Royal Rumbles ever. One of my favorite finishes ever with the super kick to the big dummy. And then we get his matches with Owen Hart. We get the one on Raw. We get the one at In Your House. We get him actually beating Bret to him and Hart in one of the coolest lead-ups ever, the Iron Man match and how it like progresses and everything. But what happens over, like, we're just going to gloss over the Iron Man match because I know you're not a fan of it. I think it was innovative for the time. I was rooting for Bret at the time.
It was innovative for the time. I just don't think it holds up.
Well, I mean, that's fine. And I think this is where my mind started to be made up that Shawn Michaels was Shawn Michaels without the championship, and he never needed the championship. Because if you look at from when Shawn Michaels wins the championship at WrestleMania 12 to when he had to vacate the championship on Thursday Raw, it's not that long. Like, he didn't have a big run. So I feel like what happens is people talk about, like, I feel like people talk more about Shawn Michaels lost this smile than they talk about his WWF championship run. And I just don't,
Well, the first run is about 8 months.
Mm-hmm. 8 months back then was a long time. It was kind of like what we talked about in one of our podcasts about Randy Savage. He held the championship for a year, but he defended it once.
Right, versus, that's when they had monthly pay-per-views, and he's defending it just about every month.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're all classic matches.
Mm-hmm.
But then the second run obviously didn't even get started, really.
Yeah.
He won it, like, January, like, 20th or 19th or something. And before Valentine's Day, he's
he drops
forfeited it.
Yeah, where he cuts that infamous promo where he says that, his mother or his grandmother says, "Baby, you lost your smile," and then he put it into a promo, and people still make fun of it to this day. Which you can tell.
That's crazy. What? We talk so much about mental health, but then it's cool. It's still,
it's one of those promos that, like, people talk about it. I mean, I'm going to be completely honest. There's only been one time in Shawn Michaels' entire career where I have felt like I didn't believe that he was actually hurt, and it was just based off the timeline of how quickly he came back to wrestling, which was this knee injury. I know a lot of people out there believe that he fakes this knee injury because he didn't want to drop the championship to Bret. I know you have argued the other side that you believe that he really did have a knee injury, and you just feel like he took Russell Wilson's concussion water and he healed himself immediately.
No, that's not what I think at all. I think the story goes, the story that Bruce Pritchard, who would be the number 2 guy in WWF at times, tells. Mm-hmm. Shawn had a knee injury. He went to a family doctor who isn't trained in working with high caliber athletes. The guy's like, "You have no ACL in your knee. You're done." And so he takes the doctor at his word, forfeits the title. They convince him to go to James Andrews. And Andrews is like, "Well, yeah, but you haven't had an ACL for years. You got a little meniscus tear. We can rehab that. You'll be back in 6 weeks."
Yeah. I mean, it's a complicated story.
By that time, it was too late for Mania. And he doesn't actually come back. His first match isn't until the end of May. So it's almost 2 months after Mania.
Yeah. Well, after this, we kind of have, his whole. He has his brief teaming with future rival Stone Cold Steve Austin, and they have 2 really good matches, singles matches. I believe this is kind of where wrestling starts doing this thing where Vince McMahon starts thinking like, "Oh, I'm just going to throw these 2 together and give them the championship instead of like having full-on tag teams win," because I feel like this kind of started something that has never left wrestling. Like, it still bothers me to say. We talk about it all the time. Like, this would have been so much more special, and I feel like people talk about it more if they don't do this like every 6 months. Just throw two guys together.
Yeah, to me, this one is a little different because it's two guys that are feuding against the same force rather than just two random singles guys that are like, oh, we're not doing anything, you're in a tag team.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it works out, like we get the bar, but not all the time. Not all the time it turns.
Times that I've ever liked that.
Yeah.
What is the RK Bro and the bar?
Yeah.
Other than that, it doesn't work.
Yeah, agreed. But so after this, we lead up to one of
and the Hollywood Blondes.
What?
And the Hollywood Blondes. That's why they became a tag team originally, because neither one of them were doing anything.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, love the Hollywood Blondes. But after this, Shawn starts this kind of little partnership with Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and they start to develop this chemistry together, and we move into Shawn Michaels beating British Bulldog for the European Championship. And he is a singles champion, the only champion of his little group. And then he starts his feud with Bret the Hitman Hart back up. And without realizing that he did something, Shawn Michaels, to troll Bret Hart, he takes a promo that Bret Hart said, and he names his group after a word that Bret uses by calling them degenerates. And they decide to start calling their group D-Generation X. And we have one of the greatest groups ever. Well, we're just going to forget about the fact that Road Dogg was ever a part of this group, because that guy is worse than when you step and poop outside. So
because he's a better sports entertainer than Bret Hart ever was.
You don't believe that. You're just being a troll.
I didn't even say it in a voice that suggests that I believe it.
Yeah. But yeah, D-Generation X was super special. It was the cool thing. I mean, I have a DX shirt. I contemplated wearing it, but Shawn Michaels' second run is my favorite run, so I wanted to wear something to kind of pay homage to him, because he took a big part of this. But yeah, D-Generation X turns into one of the biggest groups ever. We get a crossover with Mike Tyson later on. But before that happens, we have the infamous Montreal Screwjob.
Okay.
I'm not going to go on here. We'll spotlight the Montreal Screwjob in a future episode. I'm not going to tell you my honest opinions about it now. But what I will say is that I love Shawn Michaels during the Screwjob for one reason and one reason only. He wanted to take the blame. He wanted to go out the next night and cut a promo saying, I screwed Bret. You're damn right I did. And Vince and Triple H did not want him to do that. I feel like this isn't even called the Montreal Screwjob if that happens. Everybody immediately thinks it's a work. If he comes out Monday and cuts that promo, we're not having segments. We're not having Bret versus Shawn rivalry matches, like videos. I don't understand why Vince McMahon didn't let this happen. I still don't get it.
I don't know. There's a lot that happened in those days. Man, summer of '97 and up till like the Screwjob time is one of my favorite times in pro wrestling. Mm-hmm. We talked about
everybody was at the top of their game at this point,
right? So the teaming with Triple H comes after Shawn's the special guest referee for Taker and Bret at SummerSlam, and Bret spits at Shawn, and Shawn goes to hit him with Jarrett's Taker, so that turns him heel. Mm-hmm. He's facing Taker, so they felt like he needed backup because Taker's so much bigger than him, so that's why they paired him with Hunter and Rude and Chyna.
Yeah.
Then he goes and screws Davey Boy in his hometown for the IC title, which he still gets heat for.
European.
He was European, sorry. He's a mean man who took the title away from Davey when he promised his dying sister, which he probably knew nothing about. Mm-hmm. And it was a creative decision to make him the Grand Slam champion and get him heat by screwing the guy over in his hometown.
A great one.
Yeah. very underrated match too. I watched it recently.
Yeah, they never have bad matches together. They work really well together.
Excellent chemistry. Yes, I love their '96 King of the Ring title match as well. And then when you get to Montreal, he beats Taker in the Hell in a Cell with the Kane debut. So we get to Montreal. And then he makes Bret Hart tap out in front of his home fans to his own move. It's cool.
Yeah. Because we want to have Bret Hart on the show in the future, we just want to point out that Tyler hates Bret the Hitman Hart. He's one of his most hated wrestlers ever. That's why we've discussed this in a previous episode. If we ever get Bret to come on here, Tyler will call in sick that day.
I will not.
Well, yeah. I don't think he'll come on the show just based off you saying that. That's how bitter he is.
Well, that's sad.
I don't know. People are allowed to be angry. We just talked about Shawn Michaels losing his smile, but now we're not allowed to.
Yeah,
Bret Hart at his. No, you're making an argument. You're doing the Donald Trump thing. You can't make an argument for what you believe is right and then ignore something else. Bret Hart is dealing with mental health shit too. Yeah, I mean, so
from losing the title 26 years ago.
Yeah, this was his only love. You could tell infidelity to his wife, not being there for his children. The only thing he cared about was being a WWF World Champion. That's all he cared about. We praise people like Shannon Sharp, who have actually said, I'll never be the best husband. I'll never be the best father. I'm going to be the best football player I can be. Some people dedicate their entire lives to their craft.
Who praise them? I don't praise that.
A lot of people do. You give up your entire life to do something special. Shannon Sharp's life is better because of what he did back then. Good for him for dedicating his life to this one thing. Tom Brady is the greatest of all time, and he's gone through 2 marriages based on the fact that he loved football more than his wife. I mean, we praise these people. Lots of people do. You don't get the GOAT moniker if you don't, if people don't praise you in some way. But yeah, I mean, I love D-Generation X. I've made the argument before that I wouldn't have put the title on Shawn at Montreal, not because of the whole Bret. I just from Montreal to when he drops the title at Mania, it's like a couple of months. Like it's not even a full calendar year. So it's like I felt like the one thing I will argue forever, and I will talk about in the Montreal when we talk about the screw job. I think this is the most disrespectful time in the history of Shawn Michaels' career because he was used as a transition champion, and he is just not like you don't use a guy like Shawn Michaels as a transition champ. Like let's get the title off A to get it to C, and we're just gonna throw B in here. And I just feel like it doesn't make any sense to me. That whole him dropping the championship, him feuding with him made 0 sense to me.
You literally just described Edge's career.
Edge is an 11-time world champion. You're talking about his first run. He gets way more.
And how many times did he have it for more than like a month, 2 months?
I don't know, man. He beat John Cena in his hometown of Boston, Massachusetts. So I think he's fine.
To then lose the title in his hometown.
Yeah, because that's what Vince McMahon loves to do. He loves people to lose hometowns. You just talked about it with David Boy Smith. Vince McMahon loves that decision. Sasha Banks lost in Boston, Massachusetts too. I mean, that's what they do. He wants people to lose at home. So,
but my point being, the transitional champion thing it is what it is. They had to get the title off of Bret, and Shawn was the guy he was feuding with, so
I just find it really interesting that Austin became the hero of the story.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm sure that pay-per-view I'm sure they sold a lot of pay-per-views on that one.
I mean, Bret has talked about it like before that screw job. It's his favorite match with Shawn. I mean,
yeah, it's really good.
Yeah. So we move on from him wrestling, him winning the title at Montreal, and he has a small feud with the Undertaker. He lets Undertaker, obviously we have the debut of Kane, like you mentioned, and then we have that infamous Royal Rumble match with the Undertaker that starts pretty much You know, it ends Shawn Michaels' career. Like that match is one of the reasons that Shawn had to retire, and I think that's part of the reason. Yeah, I think that's part of the reason why I hate the Undertaker as much as I do. Like I can't even. I just can't.
It would be one thing if this accidents happened.
Yeah,
it would be one thing if that had happened. But to the story of I taped up my fist because I'm going to make sure that little bastard did business. Go screw yourself. That's where I lose all respect.
Yeah. One would say that. Huh?
Like, you did this. It's your fault.
Yeah.
Not you. Taker.
Undertaker takes a lot of blame for a lot of this. If he actually takes the blame himself for the Montreal Screwjob, he felt like he should have wrestled Brett, and I feel like I think what we got out of the Montreal Screwjob, what we got out of, we got a perfect transition into Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like that was the end of that era, and then we got like.
Do you want to know a great story?
What?
About Montreal?
What?
So Taker was hurt.
Uh-huh.
That's why I don't believe he was on that pay-per-view.
Okay.
But he was there. He was sitting in Gorilla with Bruce Pritchard all night watching the pay-per-view.
Okay.
This is the very first time they ever did it where they would, remember how they filmed the entrances for that?
Yeah,
where they walked from the back with the guys through Gorilla and everything. So Bruce told Taker, you got to get out of here, go watch this in Vince's office because they're going to do this. So after that, after what happened goes down, Taker is livid, thinking that Bruce kayfabed him and made him go watch in the locker room so he wouldn't run out and do anything when they came back through the curtain. And he is so pissed at Bruce, thinking that Bruce knew, which he didn't.
Yeah.
And then Bruce is pissed at Taker because for some reason, thought Taker knew, and he didn't. And it's just like for weeks they didn't talk to one another. But Taker sat there the whole time, and then they made him go to the office, so he just assumed that they just wanted him out of the way, so they could screw Brett.
No, I mean it happens. Brett goes to WCW in what I consider one of the biggest fumbles ever by a promoter, producer, whatever. But we're not talking about Brett today.
You can say that, but how far in the book have you gotten? Have you finished it?
No, we're not going to talk about Brett today.
He just talks about his heart not being in it when he goes there. So
yeah, of course, he's heartbroken. We'll talk about that during the Montreal episode. I'm gonna go into that stuff. I have like a page written on like mental health and what this equates to for Brett. But moving on from here, we have one of the shortest but one of the greatest rivalries in the history of sports, which is Stone Cold Steve Austin versus D-Generation X. This turns out to be a massive story for Stone Cold. We get Mike Tyson involved. WrestleMania 14 comes. Shawn Michaels puts on an exceptional match with Austin. He had a great dance partner. And to do that, writhing in pain, that's the end of his first run at WrestleMania 14. And credit to Shawn Michaels for absolutely just doing everything in his power to just be the best performer in the world. This is kind of the 1993 Bulls, with Jordan walking away from the sport. Obviously, Shawn needed to get right. He needed to get his life together. The reason that I always make the comparison that Shawn Michaels is the Michael Jordan of wrestling is because there's just so many things that mirror to me. Like, obviously, he's dealing with drug addiction and alcoholism. And for Michael, as you said, this was a time that people didn't take care of mental health or they didn't treat it with respect. Michael's dad, he loses his dad in a horrific fashion, and then like a couple months later retires from the game. So it's kind of like, had they gotten the help that they needed at the time, maybe things are different, but obviously it's Undertaker's fault that Shawn has to walk away anyway. So,
well, it is it's to a degree, it's Undertaker's fault. And another blame that I'd place is on creative, because not only was Shawn in a position to get hurt in that match, but it's just, to me, it's a massive bag fumble to not capitalize and have more of a program with Shawn and Owen.
Yeah, agree.
I feel like that should have been the match at the Rumble, and then this never happens.
I mean, we just talked about it. Taker was he wanted to wrestle Brett. Montreal never happens. Owen versus Brett. Owen versus HBK. The injury never happens. Like, these are two things that we could have just never gotten, but we needed, as much as I hate that both of these things happen, we needed them to get to Austin. We needed it to happen.
I mean, I think he drops the title to Austin either way.
Yeah, but I suppose. But the thing is that with Shawn out of the way and then not doing the typical pro wrestling thing of having Shawn wrestle him at the next pay-per-view and then feuding and Shawn screwing him over, we got the greatest, top, I guess, Mount Rushmore rivalry in wrestling history with, Vince versus Austin. It leads right to that. So,
right.
I mean, we don't get that if Shawn is still around. We don't get that. And we needed that for that era. Those things are awesome. I have the Vince McMahon DVD, and what this meant, it's just so weird. This is why I feel like Austin loves Bret Hart so much, because a lot of his career is very similar to Bret's. Bret started little things, and then Austin took them over. And I feel like he knows that. He knows that, Bret had this rivalry with Vince, and then I made it a bigger deal. Whatever. But yeah, guys, we're going to move on to intermission. Me and Tyler, we're going to do this a little differently today. We're going to go back to the original motto where we're both going to give you a match of the week, because it's Shawn Michaels, and he means that much. We're going to skip this day in wrestling history because we're going to try to stay on topic with just Shawn Michaels.
Actually, I'd like to do a This Week in Wrestling History, even though it's a week late now.
Okay. And
This Week in Sorry.
Go ahead, go.
This Week in Wrestling History, on July 22nd, Shawn Michaels was born.
There you go. I mean, that's a great one. I'm going to do the pop quiz. So, Tyler, who did the Heartbreak Kid face in the match before the infamous curtain call?
He faced Diesel in a steel cage match.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That is awesome. Do you happen to have a promo?
Give me a second. I do, but I don't have it memorized.
Oh, okay.
I'm going with your match of the week while I look this up.
Okay. So my match of the week, we will actually touch on next, which will I don't want to do that because I want to end the segment so we can jump right into a second run.
That's fine. I got it.
Okay.
I do this because I like it. You do this because in your mind, Mark, man, all of this is really yours. Nobody knows better than me that it takes a handwritten note from the Lord Almighty to get the belt off of you, Brett. Snippet from a promo in, I believe it's February of '97. The Shawn Michaels, the one where he puts him in the figure four around the ring post.
Yeah. I love it. I love this feud.
And the best part, how did you know I was in that girly magazine? You just had to flip through the pages, didn't you? Yeah,
That's
great.
I
They
love
really
it.
hate each other.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess I kind of looked at it as I don't know. I guess I just kind of looked at it as one of the greatest things to ever happen in pro wrestling. Like I can't think of a better feud than this feud right here. It's just the best. Yeah. But I'm just gonna give you a little snippet of my promo. Who's your daddy, Montreal? That's pretty much it. I love it. I just
As
love
Bret
it.
Hart plays for 5 minutes straight.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love how Shawn Michaels is the only guy that could tell the world, or he could tell Vince McMahon like he's gonna go long. He's gonna go long because he's getting every inch out of this. So, what's your match of the week?
My match of the week was the match from the '91 Rumble between the Orient Express and the Rockers. I just can't stress enough. I just think people should go watch this match. Everything about it, from the body of the match to a really creative finish, just excellent.
All right, yeah, I'm down. My match of the week will end this, and we will segue into the best run for Shawn Michaels, which is the 2002 SummerSlam return unsanctioned match versus Triple H. So we'll jump right into this. At this time, Shawn Michaels, there had been tons of rumors, and it was before all of these rumors had actually started and been very fluid. Before we started getting rumors all the time, we didn't know that Shawn was ever going to come back. We were under the impression he was gone forever, and he comes back, and then he wrestles Triple H in my personal opinion, the best Shawn Michaels match ever. This match to me, this is one of those moments where Shawn Michaels being the him hitting you emotionally. I mean, I was a wreck during this match. I feel like it's one of the greatest matches I've ever seen in my entire life, being a wrestling fan. To see Shawn go through all of this over and over, and to see him pretty much just come back and have 3 different style matches in one. It was almost like he was like, I'm going to take the past 4 years of me getting my body right, and I'm going to give it to you all. And that's what he did. I mean, you can watch this match. I promise you. It's 3 different parts. It's like a trilogy book. You start with classic wrestling, then it moves on to classic Shawn Michaels fast paced, then it moves on to a hardcore match. And it's just all 3 phases of the match are wonderful.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. As a huge Shawn Michaels fan, like you said, this match gave me anxiety.
Yeah.
The only match that comes close is the Orton Edge match from Edge's return. Although that was pre-taped, so we knew, that he made it out all right.
Yeah.
But this one being live, I just, praying that the back will hold up.
Yeah.
And but just a spectacular performance. They went to WWE as a practice ring in one of their back then it was in like the film studio, I believe, in Stanford. And Shawn and Hunter went on Friday to go kind of practice the match a little. And they started to, and Shawn just felt weird about it, and he's like, it's just going to have to be there.
Yep.
And it was.
Absolutely right. This turned out, it's a fun fact. If we could just capitalize on what you just said, this actually turned out to be a massive deal in Shawn Michaels' career for the latter part of it, because this is what he does with lots of people when he wrestles Jericho, which that's his next big feud, obviously. When he wrestles Jericho, when he wrestles Kurt Angle, they both talk about this, that they wanted to plan the matches, and Shawn was just like, yeah, we're just going to have to go. Let's just go out there and have fun. Like, it was a big deal. I think this traditionally became something that Shawn Michaels used as
yeah, the exception being the Mania 19 match, where they both, Jericho and him, Jericho came up with, I believe, one came up with the beginning, one came up with the end, and they were just both in different places, and they wrote it down. And then they came together and realized one had made one part and the other had made the other.
Yeah.
Like, so for Mania, apparently there's like slots that you go in and you talk about your match or whatever with the agents, and it can take hours, and theirs was like 20 minutes.
Yeah. But before we move off of the Triple H feud, which actually takes over a decent amount of Shawn's career for the next 3 years, because he goes from Triple H to Jericho back to Triple H. I wanted to talk about one of the best moments I've ever seen live in person, which is Survivor Series, where Shawn Michaels shocked the fucking world and wins the World Heavyweight Championship. At this point, Shawn was never going to be anything near the World Championship. And to be the inaugural guy, to be the guy who wins the first ever Elimination Chamber in this innovative new match, to go out there and hold his own against guys like RVD, it just speaks to how special he was. The crowd went absolutely bananas. He holds the title for less than a month, but obviously we got, we were able to get Shawn versus RVD on Monday Night Raw, which I wish we would have gotten a little feud out of the two, maybe like one pay-per-view match, but obviously, like, Triple H was kind of known at this time. This was kind of like a troll job. He was kind of known at this time for winning his championship back, like, the next month. Like, during this time, Triple H was champion almost the entire time. Like, that was a big deal. He had become, like, the Bret Hart of the era, where he made the title just mean so much. Is there anything that you want to say about that before we talk about him and Jericho?
Oh, yeah, for sure. First of all, let me just say that I hate you for being able to be there. But in all seriousness, just a great moment, and I feel like what it did was it gave us some closure on the first part of Shawn's career.
Mm-hmm.
Because he got to win the title back and then lose it kind of on his own terms rather than because of injury. He initially declined. Vince wanted him to win it, and he was like, yeah, but what happens if, I get hurt? And then the whole story again is Shawn doesn't want to drop the belt.
Yeah.
And Vince was like, "No, I have faith in you." It just feels right, the old guy comes back, wins the title in the Garden.
Yeah.
We're gonna go with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of the best moments in professional wrestling history. I can't even think of I can't even think of a more important moment in terms of like legacy for Shawn Michaels, because he was gone. As I said, like I'm just going to stress, like he was retired, he was gone, it was over, and we were never going to get him back. We had these little stints which we glossed over, and we just jumped right from 98 WrestleMania to now, because the whole NWO thing and stuff, like, yeah, it's a part of his career, and it's whatever, but it just never really felt like it was Shawn. Like Shawn isn't Shawn without wrestling. That's how I always feel about it.
I was really grateful to have him on TV. But you're right.
Yeah, because there were segments in that stuff that I hated. Like, do you remember when they DX jumped him, or they alluded to that it was DX, and he was left like bloody on a broken windshield on a car when he was the commissioner? Like, I just remember thinking, like, why are they doing this? Like, I don't understand. This guy's a legend. I just don't understand it. But
yeah,
anyway.
I honestly didn't see a lot of his commissioner run because I didn't watch a lot of wrestling in '99.
Okay.
I don't know why. I still don't really like when I do watch stuff from that era. I just think it was a lot of it was really cheesy.
Yeah.
But yeah, the one thing I remember is was like Vince had like fired Austin or something, and Shawn's on the Titantron or whatever, and then it's revealed that he's at Austin's house and they're drinking together.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. Well, I think that's a great story to wrap it up here, guys. We wanted to kind of jump right into Triple H because where Triple H is going to take over a lot of the next part, but because Shawn Michaels is widely considered the greatest of all time, we thought that we would just give him the respect he deserves, and we would do a 2-part spotlight. So next week we will come back and we will pick up right at the Chris Jericho feud, and we will talk about everything after that. We'll go from Chris Jericho to Ric Flair, the reforming of D-Generation X, to his WrestleMania Classics with The Undertaker, and we will also talk about him trying to put over young talent such as Shelton Benjamin. So that's just a sneak peek into next week. And yeah, I mean, this has been fun. Tyler, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to talking about the second run next week, and yeah, I think it's like you said, he deserves at least 2 episodes. I mean, I think
absolutely
forever about his career, honestly. But
well, if I could just thank the guys that inspired me to do a podcast, which is the Raiders of the Lost podcast. They actually did a 2-part spotlight, which is they are part of the reason that I do that we decided to do the spotlight. I brought it up to Tyler. He loved the idea. They actually did a 2-part spotlight on Quentin Tarantino, where they broke down like all of his films, and they did it in 2 parts. And I always thought to myself, like, if there's ever a wrestler that deserves a 2-part spotlight, it has to be Shawn Michaels, because he has that retirement in the middle. And I would say that we could possibly do this on Edge in the future, but we need more of a run. So maybe the actor strike will bring him back to us full time for a little bit. But for right now, we could do a wrestler spotlight on Edge in one shot. But he's still legendary. But yeah, I mean, guys, you can hit us up at Must Wrestling on Twitter. On my TikTok, I'm BORICUA.LOU. You can hit me up on there, or Tyler's Grizzly Canadian on Twitter, and what is it? Go Leafs Go on Instagram.
Yep.
Yep, and you can hit us up. Let us know if there's any wrestler you would like us to spotlight. If there was any match, we would love to do like a breakdown of a professional wrestling match. Where I believe what me and Tyler are going to do is we're going to watch the match together, and then we're going to just talk about the match on the podcast. You won't see the match because of copyright, but we will watch the match as it's happening, and we will talk to you as we're watching the match. I think that'll be great. Let us know if you enjoy something like that. Until next week, guys, he has been the headliner, the showstopper, the main event, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Micheals. We are out, guys.
Out.